One of the points for making these videos is so that I get comfortable speaking and also so that I can properly relay information and communicate better. So, in turn, today I'm going to be talking about this crazy ass fucking documentary that I watched. Um, I have this trait where I just have to dig and I have to dig. And I unfortunately have the autism where social issues are my special interest, knowing about the dark parts of the world and society and people and corrupt systems. I'm obsessed with them. I'm diagnosed with OCD and my brain just ruminates on this type of shit forever. And there was a point in time where I had to ban myself from just going down rabbit holes and watching news and reading media about it because I would get so fucking depressed. I had no balance, especially when I was younger. I had zero balance. So, that's a little fun fact about me. And this documentary that I watched was on American poverty. So, I'm gonna talk about the documentary and also just speak on the thoughts that came up for me, my experiences, all that good stuff. I would like to say that poverty is a very touchy subject to me. I grew up in extreme poverty. I've dealt with food insecurity, homelessness, and all the rest. So, I learned about how corrupt the system was from a very young age, and I think that that tainted the way that I trusted um, the government and other people because I learned at a very young age that nobody is going to save you, and it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're not guaranteed a good life, you're not guaranteed food on the table, you're not guaranteed a house to live in. And it really it made me depressed at a very young age. I remember vividly I would look for senators, representatives. I was trying to get in contact with the president in middle school. Anybody that was close to that nigga to let him know that my mama worked 7 days a week and we couldn't afford a house. And I felt like he needed to know that so that he can help us. And that's when I got the reality check that nobody gives a fuck. Like, at all. And coming to that realization on my own as such a formative time in my life, and then also having to deal and live through the experiences of I'm in high school but I don't have a home, I don't have a house, like people can't come over here because I don't know where I'm going to be at, or I don't know how I'm going to get to school this day. And just having this completely different life from everybody around me and feeling so alienated, specifically for me because I live in a city that is um wealthier than others. So if you're poor, it's still like, oh, you're poor. Like, you'll get made fun of for living in an apartment. You'll get made fun of for wearing the same shoes every day. So yeah, that is my own personal connection to this documentary. And it started off strong with LA homelessness, and it covered the stories of people who live in their cars and work full time. And the concept of that is just so fucking insane to me, that you can work your ass off, still have the motivation to work your ass off and get nothing in return. And it's so admirable that those people get up and still continue to do that every day. Which I understand, a lot of people have no choice. Like, you'll go crazy and you'll kill yourself without anything to keep you moving and keep you motivated. But I don't know, it was just so disheartening. And there was one story where a guy he worked in a tech job and he got injured and couldn't work anymore. And so California gave him unemployment for 6 months and then cut it completely. Which he was still affected by the injury that he faced, and he also was having health issues which caused him to need medicine. So he had to choose between medicine and a place to live. And eventually that led him to be homeless and living in this homeless car lot. Um, and so many similar stories to that. There was another woman that was married and her husband up and left her. And eventually she just could not find her footing in the city, and it led her to that car lot. And she works a caregiving job and a cleaner job and cannot afford rent. And they all collectively gather to try to give each other food and source food for each other. The women would shower at the gym and work out at the gym. And oh, it's very disgusting to think about the fact that California and LA specifically is like one of the most wealthiest cities. It is known for just a plethora of things like the film industry, and like the gap is just so huge there that it disgusts me to know that so many people live like this, and their tent is next to somebody who could drastically change their lives and probably 100 others and be perfectly fine. And when I think about that too hard, I really I get really depressed. I get really like helpless and side eye people a lot and their intentions and their values. But I think as an American, you have to kind of you have to accept the fact that this is life for you as an American, which is crazy as fuck. But anyway, then in the documentary, it traveled to Richmond, Virginia, which is way too close to home for me because what the fuck? I literally had a cousin that lived there, and I remember going there and being like, ooh. So learning more about what goes on in Richmond really made sense to me. But Richmond has the most evictions in America. They average about 30 evictions a day in the city of Richmond alone. And they also have these systems in place where everybody's late payment history is public information. I could go on the internet right now, look up Sarah, and see how many late payments she had wherever the fuck. And so what's happening is people could have gotten evicted 10 years ago, and they still can't get a house now because somebody can look them up and be like, oh, you got evicted. No, babe. So there was this one family in the story where this guy has two kids and they live in a hotel, and he was talking about how cramped it is, how him and his new partner have incomes, but nobody will give them a place to live because they have previous evictions. And the eviction policy for Richmond is also very strict. 5 days late, a company can, or a complex or apartment, they can start evicting you. A landlord can start evicting you if you're 5 days late. And I give a fuck. And then as soon as that happens, you have like, it ranges from you can have 1 week to move out to 2 days to move out, or all your shit is just all over the place. And in this segment specifically, I was very intrigued at how they showed the different roles that take place in this process, because it followed a officer, like an eviction officer, who goes door to door and like follows through on these processes and puts up the eviction notice and gives people their notice, and how he was just like very unremorseful about it. He didn't give a fuck. Sometimes he literally in the documentary he put an eviction notice on the wrong house. This lady is shook, like, bitch, I'm about to get evicted. I pay my rent. So yeah, a white man, of course. Damn, you're a cop. And then there's this one segment where he put the notice on somebody's door and she came out and the cameraman was talking to both of them, and he was basically asking her questions about like what is her stance on it and does she think it's fair and just. And it really saddened me that a lot of people will adopt the mindset of being in the wrong and just surrender to, I didn't pay my bill, I didn't do what I had to do, so this is the consequence, without acknowledging that they're living in a system that is corrupt, and even if they did everything right, they could still end up in this situation. And I think a lot of Americans cope by doing that, by trying to mentally say that they have some type of control over everything or take the fault of everything to deal with the fact that so much is out of their control. And there was this lawyer who basically fights against the injustices of the evictions in Richmond, and he was saying, like, your hours could get cut. You could get in a car accident. You could have a medical emergency where you had to pick between life or death or paying your rent. And now you have this record because you paid an $100 fee 2 days late, and now you can't get a house anywhere. And it's really fucked up, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting. So yeah, then after Richmond, it traveled to the Appalachia. It's a very interesting region of America, I must say. But this one focused on food insecurity, and it followed how people rely on food stamps in order to eat, and these free food programs for kids to eat, because a lot of the youth is not eating, and a lot of families, they can't afford food, or they, things like that. And something that stood out to me was that a large percentage, majority of the Appalachia region voted for Trump, and in turn, Trump is actively trying to cut their food stamps. And, well, he did it. I know, because it affected my household. So, he's cutting food stamps. The people at the grocery store are like, more than 50% of the people here pay their groceries with food stamps. Your quality of life is deteriorating as you are putting this man up on a pedestal, and actively your life is getting worse, and you don't give a fuck to make that connection and keep doing that. And it is a very odd case, because the documentary didn't even try to figure out, like, why the fuck that is. But I can't wrap my head around it. I can't wrap my head around what is pulling you to this man, that you don't give a fuck about your quality of life. You're going to support a nigga that hates you and does not care if you die on the street tomorrow from starvation or health issues. So yeah, that was interesting. And another very interesting thing that takes place here is that, hold on, let me change my position. They have this thing where a nonprofit comes in every weekend, or like a few weekends. I don't remember how frequent, but I know it's pretty frequent. And they give out free medical consultations and medical work, dental work, healthcare, all that stuff. And there's lines wrapped around like Beyonce's at the stadium. And it's so bad that when it sells out, and people just have to wait. Like, people camp out because they have to pick between getting medicine or eating food most of the time. So these people are waiting for this day where they can get the healthcare that they need. And another interesting aspect of this process is that the work is nonprofit and volunteer based. And it just got me thinking about how in America, most of the life-saving care, most of the life-changing work is not funded. It goes to nonprofits, which we know nonprofits are underfunded, and everybody that has ever worked in a nonprofit knows you're over fucking worked. Like, everybody, I don't even have to speak too much about it. If you know, you know. But everybody in the nonprofit is overworked, underfunded, or it's heavily based on donations and volunteers who are doing free labor. And I can't wrap my head around the fact that you're working. The dentist, he said, I extracted 15 teeth so far today. and he was halfway through the day. You're you're working harder than you would be working in a dental office for free. And it showed a lot of other volunteer based people who were doing this type of life changing work. And it was just really sad to know that you have to choose between being passionate about humanity or being stable and secure in your own life. There was another segment that was towards the end where this one man, he helped the LA homeless population, and he quit his job and he relies on his partner's income so that he can full-time help these homeless people, and he gets a lot of backlash and a lot of police surveillance for doing so. And it's yeah, so I was thinking about that came up too as something I noticed throughout the film, how you have to choose between having passion for people and caring about the world or having stable income and steady income. So that was something. And another personal takeaway from seeing specifically that medical event, the first thought that came into my mind was, damn, I wish I lived there. The first thought was, damn, they need to bring that here. I cannot tell you how stressful it is to not have healthcare and not being able to have access to medical attention when you need it. And I resonated with that so heavily because I have my own little thing going on with my not having insurance and all these things, and it is so awful, and your quality of life completely plummets because it's poison in the food. It's poison in the air. You're working yourself to death. You're stressed. When you're stressed, your body breaks down. And then you have all these things working and fighting against you. And it's not even like, I don't even fucking trust Big Pharma. I don't trust doctors. I don't hate going to doctors, but just not even having the security to go to one if you feel like you need it. Awful. It's awful. So yeah, then it went, this is where it got weird. It went to Waco, Texas, and there was this event, process. I can't find the word for it right now, but it was experience homelessness, and it was this company that charges people $60 to experience homelessness. I understand the mission of that. People need to have more empathy towards homeless people. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're one emergency away from being homeless, and they treat homeless people like they're just dirt on the street. So I think programs like that are very important for people to have empathy. But it was just really strange the way that they went about it. So first part of the process is that they take all these people, they put them in a room that looks like fucking Buffalo Exchange. It looks like a mini Goodwill or something, and they say, "Oh, if you want to be homeless, you gotta look the part." And they let the people go shopping to shop and make themselves look homeless. And okay, if that's not weird enough, or if you don't think that that's weird at all, cool. What was throwing me off even more is that, of course, all these people that are participating in this is white. They're like, hee hee hee, ooh, I'm a fashionable homeless person. Ooh, what do homeless people wear? Ha ha ha. it was throwing me off. It was throwing me off. Anyway, then they go and they sleep just outside of the building in a fenced area, and they just sleep on the ground. And that's like the second part. Which, okay, like, we can't just throw people out in the street and let them sleep among the homeless people, because one, that's insensitive, and two, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of liabilities. And I understand, like, being in nonprofit work, or that's probably just way too much. I get that, but I thought that was weird too. The second part, they have to go out, they're released into the city, and they have to find food, but they cannot beg because begging is illegal. in Waco, Texas, and they cannot rummage through the trash can because that's also illegal and considered stealing. Which those two laws are very strange, but yeah, that just made me think about the fact that they once you are homeless, you're not a person. And then to instill those laws, I'm pretty sure they probably have anti-homeless benches and side rails and stuff. If they have um criminalized homeless people digging in the trash can to eat because they can't eat anything, like talk about being kicked while you're down. Imagine you're in the trash can getting something to eat for yourself because you have not eaten, you're at your lowest point of life, and the police comes over and arrests you because that is our property. Literally fuck yourself. I couldn't. Yeah, that threw me off too. But oh, that was overall. It circled back to LA after this, and talked about that man I was telling you about who helps the homeless full time with housing security. And yeah, it's interesting when you're hearing stories or just observing situations like this, because you get to see the different sides of society. And I think inherently any good person will think, hold on, I'll sit up again. Inherently any good person would think like, this is awful, I can imagine being in this position, times are hard, like immediate empathy for these people, even though yes, you can still say, well, yeah, some people got this out there, some people were drug addicts, some homeless people are criminals, like all those things can be true at once. But I think an inherently good and sane person understands that it is a terrible and awful and unlawful position to be in. But then you get cameos of people that just dehumanize homeless people, they dehumanize poor people, they don't want to look at them, they don't want to be around them. It's like they're a fucking roach, they're like a mosquito, like a pest. And I don't imagine how you could have that mindset or how you could think that way. Like, what led you to get there and why is very fascinating to me. There was this one segment where the guy he built a shed to get to this homeless couple because where they was living in was full of bugs and the woman was pregnant. And when he put the shed up, this lady was like, I don't want to see that in front of my house. And they immediately called the cops. And the guy was like, just go back into your house with your air conditioning. Like, the disconnect between what you're experiencing and what these other people are experiencing, and to not give a fuck at all, cannot wrap my head around that at all. So, yeah, that was the documentary. It was a YouTube documentary, so I'll put it in the description. That was my little yap sesh about it. And yeah, I'm gonna be pissed off about it for the rest of the day, but yeah.